Good morning, neighbors. I'm Helen Zainadine, Director of Volunteer Engagement with ReEstablish Richmond, as you all know. And you are attending our October Neighborly Chat led by our very own Alison McGandy. Alison's career has revolved around teaching all types of adult English learners, whether at workplaces and community college or at free night school programs. She still teaches today remote for a program she helped grow back in Massachusetts, where she is from. A few years ago, she found ReEstablish Richmond on social media, and she signed up to join us as an English tutor. We have held on to her ever since. Alison has been playing a crucial role recently in lifting our English classes off the ground, and I'm happy to have her here as a volunteer and a friend. She will be leading us this morning through a training entitled Tips for English Tutoring, 9 Best Practices for Authentic Communicative Learning. And our goal for you is to leave with a structure for creating your own learning menu to use with your student and to learn how to structure a tutoring session around a dialogue you create for and with your student. Alison, you can take it away.
Thank you, Helen. And thanks everyone, fellow volunteers, for being here with us. I love the name Neighborly Chat. I will try to honor it. And I want you to feel free to unmute and speak up whenever it's relevant, or feel free also not to speak up if you prefer to listen and think about things and talk to me later about them. That's okay too. As Helen said, I've been doing adult ESL for a long time, as many of you have done your careers for a long time. I know there are teachers and trainers and experts of all kinds among volunteers. I'm very aware of that. So always want to keep that in mind. That fits in perfectly. We as adults have all kinds of experience, just as our tutoring clients have. And really all we care about today and with our clients is that we maximize and build on all the talents and experience that they have. For us, it may be easier to share. We're all more or less using English today. We're more or less understanding where we are here in Richmond, Virginia, sharing a lot of things that I may not share with my clients. I might not have access to. And I may not be adapted to my client. My client may not be adapted to me at all culturally. So that said, I'll just add to the introduction. It's just that I am a creative intellectual type. I've had the privilege of a lot of education and research, history research. I'm a trained historian. So I've learned in a disciplined way how to investigate, compare, how to advocate for myself, all kinds of things that sometimes help me in working with clients. And I think I love tutoring because I can continue my work as a historian and I can support the community where I am now. I'm also still learning the community. Nancy Riddle-Moser and Helen and some others have helped me so much to adapt to this community where I am, and I'm still learning about it. So that said, I'd like to ask you today, I'm just going to start to share my PowerPoint such as it is. I could apologize, but I won't bother. I'll just say I'm very simple when it comes to technology and PowerPoint. I'll just be simple and be myself. The first thing I want to talk about and ask you is also the last thing that I'll ask at the end. And it's really, what's your why? Why are you a tutor now? And maybe your why has changed. Know your why, adapt your why. This is slide 13. It's the end of the presentation. And I said my why was because I love to investigate, compare, learn, and I do feel called to support and advocate for newcomers in the community, in any community. What about you? And what kinds of verbs from Bloom's taxonomy here would you use? There are so many more. What about you? Just take a minute to think, why am I a tutor? And I know everyone will say help, but we'll just move away from help. I know we are helpers.
Do you want them to put them in the chat?
Yeah, we could. Can you help me with that? I can put people in chat, and I mean, you can put things into the chat. I wasn't really going to do breakout rooms unless you prefer. Yeah, type it in the chat if you wish. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, and I can collect them from the chat. I can see them. If anyone's called to share. Oh, I see a typo. It's weird. All right, great. People are already saying empower. That's a great one. Yeah, empower should be part of support, make connections, relate.
Welcome.
Welcome. Hospitality is a big part of tutoring. Relating is really everything in hospitality. Advocate. More and more. Connect and learn. Two-way learning between ourselves and our clients, for sure. Great. You know, I recognize that tutors may have outside other projects that they're constructing that involve newcomers, that involve community. There's all sorts of dimensions to this. Right. So that's where I start with clients. I need to know my why, but I need to know my why for every session. I'll tell you right off that every session is a standalone for me when it comes to working with adults. I'm starting new each time, and I'm starting fresh. That may sound tiring, but it is a just-in-time tutoring practice. So every time I go in, before I start a session, I'm thinking, why am I here? And I'm also thinking about my clients' big goals as they've stated them. So I'm mindful of that as an umbrella. My clients' goals. What are our clients' goals? And I can shout out some of them. You might have heard, I want to work at such and such. I really need to get a job. It's quite urgent. I want to continue my education. I had to stop. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a nurse. All of these, you know, they can be quite long-term or short-term goals. I just need money for next month's rent. It could be short-term, all sorts of things. Sometimes clients just say to help my family. Clients may formulate their goals. When I listen to client goals, I just record them in my tutoring notebook for that student, my tutoring notebook for, for client Mary. And I just write it as she says it. I write it and I save it, and I ask her periodically. I don't ask her goals each time we meet, not in every session, but I do check back with her periodically about her goals, because I find that Mary's, the newcomer, is so changing and flexible and learning that she may have modified her goals and changed them. I don't do much to, okay, so yeah, I just have them in my notebook. I have my why. Let's go to the next slide. For session to session, I'm always writing one sentence objectives using verbs from Bloom's taxonomy. And I open up the big Bloom's taxonomy. There are a lot of verbs. And I always have objectives before I start any tutoring session. I've written them. I've written a couple. I meet Mary, I meet that student for an hour. And so I might have one or two objectives for that session. If I were meeting client Joe for an hour, I might have 3 or 5 objectives. It's client to client, it's customized. But the objectives are the backbone of the session. So what I've said that the client can do is my objective in the session. And I've written the objectives in I can sentences, or they can, if you want. But I've used I can because I want to share it with the learner. I've put it in the notebook. The notebook is between me and the learner, and I'm referring to it, and I'm writing and talking out loud and sharing it. Oftentimes, I even put a check mark next to the objective so we can check it off when we've done it. It's very satisfying. Or not. Some examples of stated objectives, which are also written, and I'll write them even if my client maybe can't read them or can't read them efficiently. I still write them because I am constantly modeling literacy. So I'm just showing that I write naturally. I'm not teaching them writing in that moment. I'm just saying this is what I do. I think, I write. I think with my hand, and my hand writes. My sentences are in clear handwriting, or I could have typed them and brought them. But I like to show clients how I write, how I form the letters, and how fast or slowly I can write. And I've used simple, clear language. Simple, clear language according to the client's needs. So I can repeat the days of the week. I can schedule my day. I can talk about my schedule. I can find out where the DMV is located and how to get there. Objectives are everything. And you'll notice that objectives don't have anything to do with grammar, really. Inside the objective is hidden a grammar nugget, but it's not stated as such. In order for my client to be able to schedule their day, it's implicit in there that my client knows how to talk about the calendar, knows something about time telling, enough so that it can support their scheduling and planning needs. I always have a paper calendar, or if I'm tutoring online, an image of a very clear, simple calendar. I'm using simple a lot, but I just love simplicity. It's simple and big. And if the client is very prolific in English, I can fill it with English. We can fill it together, the client and I. But I always leave space for the amount of English that the client can generate on that calendar. And I talk about calendar at the beginning of the tutoring session. I refer to where we are and what day it is and what time it is. Sometimes I also have a template for agenda that has times. If I see that my client enjoys breaking down their day into times, I will use it, but I won't push it. Someone else? All right, good. So the objectives, the routine, you can see already that the objectives are tied to a routine. You have routines when you meet with your learners, and I have routines. I always start with objectives, always start with calendar, with time. Of course, I find out a little bit about the client's why of the day or what's going on before starting. This might take 15 minutes out of a tutoring hour. I have formulated a foundation dialogue. So before I met with client Mary, I had in mind a dialogue of the day that we were going to work with. And let's say Mary is, like many clients, many newcomers, some kind of an advanced beginner. It seems like that's quite common. And I have just enough language in there to meet Mary's language needs. And I have a real dialogue that's related to her and related to her life, how she's living. So this is really, really important. I can open up a book. I can open the Oxford Picture Dictionary, which ReEstablish God for volunteers, and it's great. And I can go to the section online that has dialogues, and in the lessons, there are always dialogues. I can use them, and there'll be something like, telephone dialogues or something about supermarket. Good morning. Oh, hi. Can you tell me where the potatoes are? And there'll be things like that, but they may have nothing to do with what my client is focusing on, what feels like a priority to them in their lives. Like, I just can't stand them. I can't stand using them unless they match exactly what my client needs. Tutees are adults with limited time, many priorities, and a lot of urgency, social and economic. I don't have to tell you that. We know that. So for that reason, I'm into the whole, tailoring of the dialogues, but it's okay to start with a model and take them out of the Oxford Picture Dictionary. I have it here, you have it too, and I'm really glad that ReEstablish shares that with people, and on the pages at the bottom, they always have dialogues down here, and I can use them. Sometimes I have to simplify them for beginners or make them, season them up for people as stated. I'm going to recycle this dialogue, so it's worth it. The conversation that I've created, I'm going to bring it back a lot. I'll write it in my notebook, and if it's relevant and doable, I'll write it in the learner's notebook too. If the learner is lower literacy, I'll be mindful of what I'm writing in their book. I'll just be mindful. Yes, I might write the dialogue, but I will make it accessible to them. I might include pictures. I might have cut out some small, I can print out black and white clip art from the OPD, Oxford Pictionary website, and I can clip out some pictures, or if I'm talented, I can sketch next to the words. I don't want to put stuff in the learner's notebook that's completely not digestible to them at this time, but I want it to be something they can reach for. I just want to open up for a second and pause there because I'm talking a lot. And is this kind of strategy something that you do or would do? Any reactions at all? You can put it in the chat if you want, or you can unmute. And I'll offer an example, and I want to open up space for people to offer examples. I was at my client's house yesterday, and the family was there, more family than I expected because somebody had stayed home from school. So I walked into the situation, and I know that you've had it too. It's just different from what I expected, but I did have some conversation ready, and I modified it to reflect the situation, which is her two kids were sitting in the living room, and we were talking about scheduling and about driving and about food. God, there's some things in the chat. Yeah, so when we're talking about low literacy clients, yeah, good. Connect and learn. Yeah, a perfect way with lower. Yeah, I think pictures is key. Picture dictionary. I should have said that. That's really good. That it goes without saying that my picture dictionary is always at my side. And I even have some pages flagged and tabbed so that I can open it up anytime and refer to things. And that obviates the need for Google Translation and things like that. I don't use the translator. So we're really having a real conversation. I'm trying to make it as authentic as possible. And so I included the kids that were in the room, because if I pretend they're not there, it just feels fake to me. And obviously the kid's presence is affecting the adult a lot. She was kind of stressed out, but I didn't want to cancel the session because it's our time and it's our routine. And the one thing I can do with that learner and for that learner is support routine and predictability, that this is the time we meet, even if every meeting might be a little different. Good. Thank you for sharing about that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Terry, I'm muted. I think she wants to share something.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Thank you for noticing that. Yeah.
This is so far beyond what I am able to do with my client. She's not literate. So I can't show her a phrase in her language and then translate it into English and work with her in English. So it's okay. I mean, we can point at a tomato and
Yeah.
learn the word tomato, but I can't do, and trying to talk about here and there, up and down is easy, but here and there, it doesn't.
It's a challenge. Yeah. It doesn't make it easy.
I don't know how to get beyond that, beyond just objects.
Yeah. I'm glad that you said that, honestly, because when one person says it, we've all shared it, and it's stressful and difficult for us and maybe for the learner too. So with the dialogue, Terry and everybody, I'm saying something, and some of it, the learner isn't understanding some of the words. So I'm not breaking down every word. I have 2 points, 2 reactions to Terry. One is that I'm using a dialogue that's common, might be heard around the learner, something that I won't be the only person to say it to them. Like, do you like tomatoes? It's the kind of thing that others will be asking. So the client might know it's something about tomatoes, but I am using 5 senses and objects, and I'm using the objects to build around. So in a certain way, I'm never getting beyond objects really with people, but I've built a whole world around that object. And if I were more talented with PowerPoint, I could show better, but look at my broken mug, isn't it great? So this is a real object. It's broken. And I would say it's a problem. You know, it's a problem. And I could ask people, you know, how to solve it, or I could just leave it at, this is a mug, this is a spoon. I have a lot of options what to do with this. But if I am teaching a low literacy learner and a very beginner learner, even if they are not low literacy, I'm moving toward objects and away from translation. And again, like I do save translation for urgent issues or emotional distress, things like that. I would 100% use a translator to talk about something really, really deep and complicated. But I'm trying to challenge myself to just do things around the tomato, around the broken cup, and see what I can do with it. I have objects and images. I have things with textures and smells and things like that. And that will help invite my client into the whole language thing. So I guess for Terry's client and some of mine, I should move a little bit away from the notebook, and I should have objects on top of the notebook and just cool it a little bit on my writing and do drawing and labeling. Because you may have worked with alphabet letters and sounds with that client. You may have, or you may be going to do that, alphabet letters and sounds. So by this mug or this cup, I might draw a C. I might get my Post-it note and write cup or make a C and put it on the object. I might take the cup and put it under the table and ask, where's the cup? I can have a lot of dialogue with, where's the tomato? It's here. And there's nothing wrong with that. If it's engaging and interesting, maybe fun. If it seems stupid, you wouldn't do it. But if it seems real or useful, if the tomato is in the fridge or on the table, I don't know where we all keep our tomatoes, but I find that interesting, how people keep their food. I don't need the broken cup. I just need whatever's at the client's house or what I've brought. And I do bring things because it's much better. So I need to know more about the client and how they're spending their time in their daily life, that client. And then I can talk about here and probably use gestures, and I can talk about there, which I constantly do that there. or pointing. But I would do.
Yes, I've done that, and I
Right.
found out that she thought when I said there, she thought I was pointing to the sofa.
Mhm.
Here, she thought I was pointing to this sofa instead of getting
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
and there and here. So
Uh-huh.
it's
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a real life, like relationship problem between me and the learner. And it's just going to keep coming up and coming up over and over again on different levels. So that's perfect example of it's a misunderstanding. I'll try my tricks, and we can crowdsource with other tutors about their tricks and strategies. And then if I feel like I really need to move on, I would get my phone and do Google Translate and play it out in the sound of that person's language. I would, if I needed, if I felt really frustrated, like, yeah. What were you going to say?
well, the language is Dari, and that's not in Google Translate.
Oh yeah, yeah, Microsoft Bing translation. Yeah.
My Dari client actually uses it from time to time. It might be called Persian.
Oh.
Yes,
like
it is called Persian. Yes, that's
So-
important information.
Okay.
For us.
Yeah, I saw Persian, but she said no to Persian and yes to Dari. So
Yes. Well, that would be good background information. Like, yeah, that would actually be good from ReEstablish. We're always prepared when we're matched with clients, and I know things about my client. So that would be really good to know. Dari is Persian. It's called something different.
Okay.
Because it's called something different because that's a national choice. And, it's a subtlety and a national choice.
okay.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Injaw. Injaw. Oh, that's funny. Huh. Injaw. So it sounds like here. Okay, great. So we are learning. Yes. Eric.
I use big dramatic gestures,
Uh-huh.
everything over the top, almost like I'm trying to project to the back row of the theater, from on stage.
Uh-huh.
So for here and there, for example, you might try standing up and then sitting down and say, I sit here,
Uh-huh.
and then stand up and walk over and say, I sit there, or I'm going there.
Thank you for that. Total physical response, TPL. That is and was a really popular way to teach. So if you feel authentic with it and you can do it, thank you for Tarjimli in the chat. We have good things in the chat. So if that's authentic to Eric, it really is, it fits how you are. We don't know you. I don't know you, but it's so authentic to you that you can pull it off. When I've tried total physical response, sometimes people just think I'm not well or insane. I don't know. Yeah. But it is a real language learning tool. It's a bona fide language learning tool. The idea that people will read our body and really understand and remember too.
Plus, if you're teaching someone who's from a culture that's very demonstrative, verbally and with hand motions and arm motions, and so that's going to be natural for them, even if it's not natural for you.
That's a point too. Yes. Yep. I use my apartment. Great.
Allison,
Yeah.
there's a question from Jessica in the chat. And she's asking does this still work if we're looking up pictures on cell phones? Like instead of her bringing an object, they're looking up stuff on their phone.
It's the next best thing. It's the next best thing, because maybe you can't drive around with like a potato and some dough, some bread dough in the back of your car. Yeah, it is. Although we know, we know it isn't the same because we know the tactile isn't the same, but it's the next best thing. And maybe it's what we have. Yep. And I don't mind the translator. I don't mind the use of, good. I don't mind the use of any of that. I just don't want the adult to become totally dependent on the device when I'm at their house or when I'm with them. When we're together, when I'm talking to Helen or Nancy or sharing coffee, I don't speak to her through my phone exactly. I do use my phone to show her things, but I try to put it down and relate. So that's just a technology culture. I don't want my student to rush every time for translation. And I don't want to have to constantly look up pictures, but the reality is we do rely on technology and images. And maybe objects will speed things up for people and activate their superpower. So I'm looking for the adult learner's superpower. That's what they really know. I can ask about my adult's career. What did you do back home? What did you do for work? I can ask those things, but sometimes I don't get close to what I really want to know, which is, what are you really good at? What did you spend so many hours doing that you're great with it? And it could be related to food. It could be related to hospitality, skill, could be related to children and family, or something technological or technical. You're welcome. I don't know. And even though I know many people's cultures, I lived in Syria for 2 years. I lived in Costa Rica for 2 years. Like, I'm kind of a culture broker person, and I have pride about it. I still don't know when I meet somebody from those places that I supposedly know. I don't know their real life. And the more adult they are, the harder it is for me to know. I'm thinking, okay, what year did they go to school? Was there mandatory public school? Was there a war at that time? And then their personality. Are they kind of extroverted, or are they more quiet? It's just really deep. And I want to know really what they can do best, because that's the tool that will help me with their English. So again, if that person can cut a tomato really well, I'd be sincerely interested, because my husband is from Syria and he can cut a tomato into so many beautiful tiny pieces. I've never been able to do it. And it's a particular skill to his personality, age, generation, culture. And I don't think that's trivial at all. It's it could be the tool that helps me relate to him when I first meet him. All right, I exaggerated. So we're teaching grammar. I've jumped to another slide just to look at the time. And it's hard for me to read the chat because my chat displays in big letters. I got to fix that. So I like to read the chat, but I got a chat problem. I'm always teaching grammar as a tutor. Surprise, because you might think that I'm very creative and interactive and all that, but my training has taught me that it's respectful and correct to teach grammar explicitly. Let people in on the rules of English. This is a rule. I'm going to show you this, because we don't know where our clients are bringing their English, where they want to go with it, or how far they want to take it. We don't know if our clients are turning around and teaching their cousin, which I hope they will. I encourage peer learning. What I teach you, you teach someone else, and pass it on, because God knows there's not enough classes for everybody in this world to level people up fast enough. So yeah, I teach it, but it's not the point of the lesson. And when I come in, I don't sit down and say, today I'm going to teach you the past tense. I avoid that. Again, I cover it, I package it, and I make it meaningful, because otherwise, really, who cares? We're just don't teach that way. But I am showing and telling. So I've chosen a grammar point. This is the conjugation of the verb to be. Yes, and I really say conjugation, because maybe they'll take that word and do something with it. But I'm showing it. I am, you are, he is. And I either have a handout, a beautiful handout, or if I were in a classroom, maybe I would have a chart, an anchor chart, a poster, if I had access to that. But maybe I've just written it out or typed it out in the best font I have, in my best handwriting, and kept it in their notebook alone. It stands alone there, and then we can refer back to it as needed. Some clients won't make use of that much, but other clients might feel very comforted. Oh, she gave me some grammar. Now I'm really learning. And many adults feel that that is real learning. And there's nothing I can say or do to persuade them otherwise. I just don't know if it's real learning. I do know that it's not enough. So it's part of real learning. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient. That's grammar. What other kinds of grammar do we teach? And how do I know? The secret to grammar is following a grammar book. And Nancy Riddle-Moser, the materials and teacher extraordinaire, knows all the books and all the materials. And I try to help her so that tutors can find out, all right, what's a grammar book where I can just follow the structure of that thing? It's not that I'm going to teach out of it, but I want to look back and see how things are taught. I want to look back at it and, oh, which do people usually learn first? Well, in general, we do, the verb to be, simple present, and present progressive, that's the INGs. And, but we don't have to do things in this order, but it helps me as a teacher to know what are the grammar points for ESL anyway. What are we teaching? We're teaching how to talk about actions. So we're teaching verbs in talking in the now, talking in the habitual now, talking in the right now. We are listening, and especially talking about the past. Talking about the past is a lot of what we're all going to do. So I know I'm glossing over that. I encourage you to make use of the resources ReEstablish has opened for us. They've opened up the picture dictionary and the online website for Oxford Picture Dictionary. And I would suggest that there are some common grammar table of contents of grammar books that we can just have. I have a copy of one, and I just follow along. When I need a grammar point, I look in there and see how they teach it.
Do you use diagramming of sentences?
No, I wouldn't. I'm glad you asked. I did that. Warrener's grammar. I wouldn't. Nope. And I wouldn't do that unless there's something special about your client where that may be the thing they really need to move forward.
I asked because I majored in English and I was a journalist for 40 years, but the way I learned grammar was diagramming sentences back in the 7th grade.
Me too. We're probably the same cohort, and there's nothing wrong with it. It isn't really, it isn't best practice for English language learners. That's the thing with it. It isn't best practice. That said, we have people, newcomers in the community, who are very adept with English. I don't know your clients. They could be very adept with English, and they may be future English teachers, which would be great because that's a wave, is to have people like that. But of the newcomers we have today, right now, there would be very few that I've met that would be coming to ReEstablish and asking for our assistance. Yeah, it's too advanced.
Okay.
It's too theoretical, not
So
advanced.
even if you use very simple sentences and subject, verb, object.
The thing about it is what I'm selling is CL2T, Communicative Language Teaching. So that is grammar mixed in a soup with activities mixed in a soup with speaking.
Right.
So if it can't be mixed into the soup, I don't want it. And when you put in sentence diagramming, to me, It's like something that just won't boil into the soup. It's going to be like a peppercorn. It's good, but it doesn't mix with communicative language teaching and the integration of skill. So I know what the things are called. I know what adverb. At some point, maybe I do need to know what's a noun, what's an adjective, what's a verb, but that's about it. Other than that, I'm going to have model dialogues, and this is a sentence. You know, this is a sentence. Trust me, it has a doer and an action, you know, and then we can build from there. We can build from there. But there's so much vocabulary for people to learn and so much call for practical knowledge of communication in our setting. It's intense. So you know, activities are part of the soup. We're doing activities to tie together my objectives. I'm doing activities to figure out if students have learned the objective. I have no way of knowing. I mean, I have a way of knowing. I can ask an adult, do you get it? You know, thumbs up, thumbs down. That's a good way. But I also can do an activity, do a game. I can do a guessing game, a matching game. Again, objects, pictures, writing. Oxford Picture Dictionary has printable, simple ones. I don't like them because they're not color. So I make my own, but I make my own quickly. Like I actually cut up an Oxford Picture Dictionary, and I cut up Publix brochures and quick ones, make activities. We can help you with activities. We can give you activities. And the important thing with activities is that they'll involve high order thinking, that they're for adults. Adults know about guessing, finding, and fixing. Adults know about choosing. They're making decisions all day long. So we need to make our activities serious fun. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Good. Yeah. So letters with words. What's the question about letters and words? Yes, I'm writing what I'm teaching. I'm integrating my speaking with writing. Yes. So for my one client, I'm teaching beginning sounds of words. I taught the alphabet. I have done activities with the alphabet. And when I introduce a word, or when a word comes up naturally, I point out the beginning sound, the beginning letter, and the sound. Oh, tomato, T. And I label it with a Post-it. I actually physically label it. I take a picture of a tomato and I categorize it. I match it on a matching sheet, like a bingo sheet. I talk about, yes, definitely integrating speaking, listening, and writing, integrating it. So you're making that, you're customizing that. And it's much easier than you think because you're not bound to do things in order. If tomato comes up, you can talk about tea. That said, people do need to know the alphabet, names of letters, and sounds of the letters. And some of our volunteers have pointed out resources, the best way to find visuals for teaching the alphabet. ABC English, Oxford Picture Dictionary, and we will offer more sites, you know, pre-made materials for teaching the alphabet. Because it is important. That's explicit grammar teaching, really. But that said, the things adults can do with the alphabet are amazing. You can do much more. I'm sorry if I'm not answering questions. If you want, yeah. Oh, that's great. If you want to take a class in Dari online, thank you for sharing that. Okay, great. Yes. Okay, now I'm seeing. Yeah, so this would be great if we take a class in Dari / Persian, as the dictionary calls it. Then we'll relate to our clients really well. Part of English teaching training is often you have to take another language. So that would be great if we have the time and bandwidth. If a volunteer isn't 99% busy, which I know you are. My client likes grammar. So my client, imagine a client that doesn't like all Allison's fun and games. Keep in mind, my fun and games are very serious. They always have a point. But my client doesn't like them. Maybe they feel that I'm not treating them like an adult. So I need to be careful with that. I'll package my activity to make it look like a grammar lesson. I can still do an activity that feels serious and sober to the client. So this is the kind of client that says, I would like to follow the grammar book and I would like to fill in each page because I'm an adult. And I'll be okay, I can do that. I can do that, but I will add my sauce to it. And I will work to try to persuade the student that my sauce of using grammar will get them to their goals faster. So I'll refer to their goals. You say you do want to be a nurse, and to get to that faster, sure, there's grammar, but there's objectives of show me how you use that grammar in the hospital or in the doctor's office. And I can sell it over time. I'm not a type to go, against my client directly, but we are good at sales. As Nancy Riddlemoser says, English learning is part sales. So we do want to close the deal, which is move and support people toward goals and maybe help reframe goals. So it isn't, yeah, good. The vowel sounds. Yeah. I need to read the chat and capture the chat. Vowel sounds, and all of this can be done through activities. There are activities pre-made, and there are templates for making activities that enforce phonetics, that is learning consonant sounds, names of letters, and learning vowel sounds and using them. I might have a whole tutoring session where I focus on the aw sound. And I've created a dialogue that has a lot of aw sounds in it. So my grammar objective is hidden inside the function, the language function. I'm hurrying a little because I don't want to waste time. I'm always problem solving out loud. So I'm modeling higher order thinking. Oh, I wonder what my cousin is doing. I wonder what the baby wants. And I speak it. Sometimes I write it or draw a picture of it, but I really demonstrate my curiosity and my confusion. I model that because I want to invite my learner friend into that too, so that they can show when they're curious or confused. I draw, I encourage clients to draw. We have the dictionary in front of us, and I'm real. Without oversharing about my life, I am real. If there's something that I saw outside on the street that I didn't like, I'll express it. I'll say, I don't like cars, or, I don't like whatever. I don't really like a lot of things. I'm constantly informally assessing the learner. So when I'm starting, I'm finding out if they still remember that objective from last time, or if we need to practice it more. But I'm ongoing assessment in my mind, informal. My assessments are not with worksheets. They're just not. That won't fit into the communicative language technique well. Again, if my client wants to do worksheets all day long, they can do as many as they want. And maybe I would maybe correct them if they insist, that's fine. But I'm not really all about that, and I don't recommend it. My informal assessment of the learner is they know that the tomato is here, or they know that the tomato is there. I've played a game with them. Either they know it or they don't know it. And I can accept either way. I just need to know. That's informal assessment. So is picking alphabet letters out of a bag, feeling them, and wondering what they are. All kinds of, games that we can do that are, okay, great, that are informal assessment. With adults, I'm repeating a lot. Tutors, if we are over 20, we know that it takes us longer to learn things. It's a fact. It's true for our students. And so we do give ample opportunity to recall, review, and repeat. We recycle a lot, recycle old words. And that's why I'm writing in my tutor notebook, so I remember what we talked about and I can flip back and bring it back anytime. I do try to bring old words back in new ways. I try not to repeat exactly the same activity when I'm doing that, because the real test of knowledge is if the adult knows about the tomato, not just on the table and under the table, but other things about the tomato, or recognizing the tomato in other situations, like the cut tomato. This is really not a great example, I'm sorry. But memorizing may be necessary. Again, we may have clients who love to memorize, and that's okay. For communicative language, it's not enough. It's not enough. But for the client who's a really good memorizer, that may be their secret superpower. And I will let them use it and see if we can forward communication through memorizing. It's possible. It's possible. And many of our friends from Asian countries have learned very well by memorizing. So I won't discard it. But again, I will put it in the soup of my teaching objectives. And I'll talk to the client about it too. It's relational. Talk to the client. I'll adjust my expectations frequently. So every session is fresh to order. It might sound like a lot of work, but it's much better to prepare each meal separately, because if I have a plan for lots of meals, it's going to get screwed up. Oh, I wanted to do past tense in the 4th week. It's never going to work. I'm still on that other thing. You don't, as a tutor, you don't have to do that. The freedom of tutoring and mentoring is that we do things on our own time. We do fresh to order. Nobody's down our back about if we're following the curriculum exactly, because we're relational with the client, and we are making things fresh each time. And we're curious each time. We've crowdsourced, we've asked other tutors, you know, because as our expectations change, we may need to seek advice from other tutors, crowdsource, change things. People change, newcomers change fast. We need to change with them. This is what it's all about. Adaptation to a culture, not assimilation, but adaptation, which is how can I cope with this situation, involves a lot of change under the surface. And that really affects people's language learning. It makes it less linear. It's not linear at all. I go to a client's house and it feels like we're just going backwards. I try to find out why and what I can make of it. So yeah, tutoring may feel like Groundhog Day. It is, in a way, it is. But it's good because I show up at 10 o'clock or I jump on Zoom at 10 o'clock every Tuesday. And that is a gift to me and to the client, because that's something we can count on. And that's consistency. Over time, that consistency grows a great relationship, really valuable. Just that somebody shows up at that time every week is a form of teaching. And it's a really nice offering. And that's what we're learning. And I don't think there's anything else that I haven't said. There are a few things in the chat that I don't want to disappear because they may be important. You can see the rest of the slide. So that goes back to the beginning. Again, the ending slide is know your why and adapt your why. So why am I tutoring? Really, what am I doing here? It's not so easy as you think to know the why. Other things are easy. And tutors are very good at showing up. So that is the last slide, Helen. And I want to offer people a chance to communicate with me in any way at any time. And I'm
Thank
sure
you,
Nancy,
Alison.
that she will do the same.
Would you like people to have your email, Alison?
That'll be fine. Yeah, that's fine. Email, WhatsApp group. There is
Yes.
a group too, so that's okay too. As you
Yes, I'm gonna put the link to the English tutor group in the chat so you can
Yeah.
join it. But thank you all for listening. This was really helpful, Alison. I stole some of your phrases so I can say them in trainings. I love the one about getting to know the client, but not, necessarily the culture, but being curious about them. And that language learning is not linear.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you all for being here. We have another neighborly chat next month that's going to be led by Nancy Grittelmoser and Lori Weinberg. It's going to be in person. So keep an eye out on social media and the newsletter so you can just have more information about that. It's going to be Wednesday, November 30th at 5:30 p.m.
Great. So after Thanksgiving. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks for being tutors together. I hope that we can all meet sometimes and gather. It would be very fun. Okay, great. And thank you for those helpful things in the chat. The links that we have, the opportunity to study Dari, and all sorts of other nuggets in there. Okay.